the big question is, what is GTA 6's release date?
Steven Ogg, who has been talking about GTA 5 DLC and specifically Agent Trevor. You play a certain section of the game as Lucia in jail. On this week's GTA 6 o'clock, GTA 5's Trevor talks DLC. Do Rockstar's cancelled projects point to GTA 6's missions? And GTA 6's opening mission. We concept what we'll be playing come release day. It's all here on this week's GTA 6 o'clock. Hello and welcome to episode 22 of GTA 6 o'clock. Little bit of a different intro there, so let me know what you think about that. I am James Jarvis, JJ. In the studio with me today is, of course, Dan Dawkins, DD.
Hello.
Hello, Dan. Yes, welcome to episode 22. We've got a few fun things to talk about this week. Of course, as always, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please click the subscribe button. Like, half of you are just watching these shows without clicking the subscribe button. So please click that button. It really does help us out. And we have a new email address. Thanks to everyone who got in touch last week. If you want to send us any suggestions, comments, questions, leaks, you can get in touch with us at GTA 6 o'clock. That's the Roman numeral 6, VI, GTA VI o'clock at gmail.com. Please get in touch. Thanks to everyone who did. But first, Dan, we should talk about Take-Two's next earning call, as mentioned last week, will be on May 16th. And that is just 16 days away. Or, in GTA 6 o'clock talk, 2 more episodes after this one. It is on a Thursday night, of course, so we might have to do something special.
Yeah.
But it's exciting, correct?
Yeah, really exciting. We say this every week, so all regulars and subscribers won't be surprised to learn this. This is where Rockstar have to put their money quite literally on the table, or rather Take-Two, Rockstar's parent company, have to put their money on the table and share their predictions for the year ahead in terms of their finances. That will reveal directly or indirectly whether GTA 6 is going to hit what many speculate is a this year fiscal date. So will it release before March the 31st, 2025? We will see. I think we're getting to the point where they're running out of runway to say, is there going to be a delay? So definitely all eyes on this call. Even if they don't say anything concrete, these questions will be incoming, and the way they navigate those questions, because at the end of every earnings call they do like an investor update.
Yeah, Q&A.
And these are investors. It's not like, Games Fan 36 asks. But a lot of the investors do like games, so they end up asking quite interior gamesy questions. They will be geared largely around what does this mean for your finances, but you will get people essentially, the big question is, what is GTA 6's release date? So
yeah, one way or the other, we're going to know if they're predicting that they're still on track at this stage to hit a release date somewhere before March 31st, or some of that money would have moved out, and then you would assume that means GTA 6 is delayed. We will see. I know we have been over this a few times, and regular listeners know all about this. So exciting times ahead. We may or may we'll definitely get something. We may or may not get some new assets in terms of maybe a screenshot. Wouldn't that be exciting? A new screenshot to look at for the next few weeks.
Heavens to Betsy, something new and official. I mean, if they are going to delay, or there's any suggestion of a delay, like we've speculated, a new asset might soften the blow for fans.
It would for me.
Yeah, exactly. and allow shows like ours to have more to chew on as we then face an 18-month void to the game, or whatever it's going to be. So, I think either way it's going to be, that's a big roadmap item.
I wanted to catch up on something from last week as well, when we were debating whether you can get an ankle tag for doing an armed robbery, and it's something that you looked up briefly after the episode, Dan. Turns out you can.
Yeah, and that was our query was, even for armed robbery, is a tag a suitable punishment? Because the gut feeling was actually, if you did an armed robbery, surely they wouldn't let you out on a tag. Yeah, answer is they would. So
I think as long as you haven't hurt anyone. So waving a gun around is different than discharging your gun.
Yeah, firing a couple of people's kneecaps off. The significance of this is we've seen Lucia with an ankle tag in the trailer, and we were speculating about the chronology of the trailer. So if the one popular theory is that the trailer is kind of in a reverse chronology, and the thing that puts her in with a parole officer or corrections officer is the heist we see at the end. I say heist, corner store robbery.
Yeah.
It's not really a heist, is it? So that would actually align in terms of the severity of the crime and receiving a tag from it. So, yeah, that reverse theory is still on the table.
Yeah, well, big news to come on that a bit later in the show because one of us has done a thing.
OMG.
So stay tuned for that.
Well, from OMG to OGG.
I love it. We are talking Steven Ogg, who has been talking about GTA 5 DLC and specifically Agent Trevor. This was on a sort of podcast with Streamily when they actually had all three of the GTA 5 lead actors there on a call as a sort of reunion thing, and they talked about quite a lot of things. It's actually, we'll put the link to the stream in the description below. You can go and listen to the entire thing of it, but there were a couple of interesting tidbits that you can bring out of this. The first of which was Steven Ogg, commentating on the Agent Trevor DLC that we have previously talked about on this show. So we can actually, why not just play the clip?
And we also had that really cool shit of, there was, and I forget if it was DLC, I have no idea, but where Trevor was going to be like a undercover. He works for the feds. And we did shoot some of that stuff with like James Bond Trevor. He's still kind of a fuck up, but he's doing his best to pretend to be like, and we shot some stuff, and then it just disappeared and never did it, and they never followed up on it. But I thought that would be cool. Like he gets hired.
They went to GTA Online, I believe, for that stuff.
Yeah.
So there you go. Yeah, he said, I've got no idea, but Trevor was going to be like an undercover James Bond guy who works for the feds. They had shot some stuff, but it just disappeared and they never followed up on it. But, that was going to be a thing. So it was clearly, as we've discussed before, far enough down the line for it not only to be a concept and being thought about, but for them to be recording voice lines for it. So it's just interesting. I know we've said before that we knew it was happening, but it's interesting to see now. And I love a conspiracy and I don't want to get further down this thing, but why now? Why would they decide to say, hey, now you can talk about that DLC that never happened? And especially in the way that he did, I felt like some of the wording that they used, it's almost exactly the same wording that we read out before on this podcast. Like it'll be sort of feds, he'll be a James Bond sort of like buck up character, but still trying to, be on that side of the law. But it's cool. It's cool to see that it was happening. But then, got shut down almost by Ned Luke going, that stuff all went to GTA Online.
Yeah, and what I liked about that, though, is it confirmed everything that had kind of been in the realm of hearsay and analysis. So, we did an episode on this a few shows ago where we essentially said this. We said that, there is a line of provenance to say that there was going to be a secret agent Trevor. It fell away and it folded into GTA Online. And then between two parts of the conversation, Steven Ogg, the actor who plays Trevor, confirmed they actually shot some of it. And then Ned Luke, confirmed or said, yes, it went to GTA Online. And so, how did it go to GTA Online? Well, that's the thing we talked about in our previous show, where essentially the nuts and bolts of Secret Agent Trevor became what we believe the Doomsday Heist, which was the sort of very fantastical Elon Musk style end of the world. It was Doomsday scenario. And there was a report on Screen Rant, who themselves were reporting on sort of a forum content. And they said that the Doomsday Heist had taken elements from Agent Trevor. It says, as confirmed by a script, highlighting the AI neural network Clifford as a featured character. So whether, the Secret Agent Trevor DLC planned to include Clifford and then he span out into a separate thing.
That would make sense.
Yeah, it would make total sense. And there's even further back, Secret Agent Trevor's origins lie, we believe, in the game Agent, which Rockstar had announced. Well, not Rockstar. Sony had announced as part of an exclusive partnership with Rockstar at E3 2009. They went on stage, there was a logo in the background, they talked about it being sort of a genre redefining action game, etc., etc. That was it. Never
That was
came to
it.
pass. There's a logo, nothing beyond that. Well, I say nothing beyond that, since there has been. And also on previous shows, we have talked about bits of concept art, haven't we, that have fallen out from that. But officially, that game was launched and died at that E3. Like, it was talked about, but then just completely fell away and they just pretended it hadn't happened. But I think now with, 10 years plus on, we're piecing together the puzzle where it feels like that was a project. Did it become the basis of Secret Agent Trevor, which was going to be a DLC, which itself got canned and turned into, the Doomsday Heist? The saddest thing would be, it seems like a brilliant standalone game. And the one with Trevor involved seems even more brilliant. And what I liked in the Streamly show was, later on as they talk, Steven Ogg talked about other things he thought would be interesting. And he said he liked the idea of the characters playing against type. So he even said stuff like, I'd like to see Franklin become a born-again, he said born-again, like he meant born-again Christian. That would be super fun. Now, I don't think Ned Luke shared his enthusiasm for that, but it was the idea that those characters wanted to test themselves and the GTA 5 characters in a different situation, but I think Rockstar clearly, for whatever reason, didn't want to.
Yeah, I guess they like we've said before, they did move all of the more fantastical stuff to GTA Online, where it does feel slightly more acceptable for that kind of really out there stuff to happen in an online universe rather than making it part of like the main story. I can see the arguments in the boardroom going, that's really jarring for these characters that we've formed over the last 30 hours. Oh, but now what? Now Trevor's a secret agent. Like, how would that even work? So I can see from a story perspective that being difficult. But, they've played with loads of different ways to do that in GTA. Like, you could go, this whole DLC was Michael on drugs, and therefore none of it really matters. Or you pull the classic Dallas thing where they just wake up at the end and it was all a dream. So there are ways of doing it, but obviously as GTA Online moved into that more sort of weird and wonderful and crazy stunt jumps and like things that were outside of the realms of physics, mostly like in the actual single player GTA 5 you don't really get that. Like, you do some crazy stuff, but it's all sort of grounded in reality.
Yeah. But that was the point. The Doomsday Heist felt ridiculous. Yeah, it was a bit, it's jetpack style, San Andreas style jetpack stuff. It was really insane. And I think the idea of taking those characters and inverting them is a classic trope of fiction. If you look at, what would Terminator 2 be if the shock wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger's the goodie? The Suicide Squad are the people we're rooting for. Like, this is the pitch of all, exciting fiction. You get characters to play against type. So I personally would have found it super fun to see Trevor sort of forcing himself to walk the straight and narrow as a proper agent. And it would have gone wrong with hilarious consequences and he'd have bent the rules. But it felt like a rich source of, storytelling to me. I guess it will never happen. We've seen the glimpses of it we're going to see. Just fun to see the characters actually confirm it, that it was quite a way down the path. Now, something I think span off from this, and I don't really know, I don't think we talked about this at the time, because GTA 5 o'clock, as it was then, was kind of in hiatus, I think, when all this stuff came out. But there was sort of, around about 2013, there was this alleged Sam Houser leak, where there was a document went out with apparently Sam Houser's detailing the status of what Rockstar were working on circa 2013. Now, retrospectively, people have gone, this is true, because they said that they were beginning work on Red Dead Redemption 2, and there was an early team beginning like a GTA 6 spin-off project. But one of the things within this was 2 further DLC expansions that, haven't happened. One was referred to as Alien War, and another was a sort of zombie apocalypse. Like, how true do you think this is? And would you have been excited about these things?
I think, very much in the same way as Agent Trevor was true. I think they said, and people in the comments can correct me if I'm misremembering this. I think at one stage it was touted for there to be multiple DLC packs story mode packs for
Yes.
GTA 5.
Yeah, I think that's right.
You could look back on that and go, well, multiple means 3. And these are the 3 that they have said they're working on. So it'd be like Agent Trevor, some kind of zombie apocalypse thing, and some kind of alien war. Now, alien war and zombie apocalypse, you could say, feel sort of similar. I would have thought Alien War is more Independence Day style dogfights in the sky, maybe type thing. Like, because that would
amazing.
be slightly different. And I mean, zombie apocalypse is just Red Dead Undead Nightmare, right?
Yeah,
But in a Los Santos setting, that makes sense, and that would be cool. I guess it changes the game into something that's. I think, having a GTA Online mode that is zombie apocalypse and you survive waves of zombies, or it's a bit like Ubisoft's The Division where you go around and you have to, there's just zombies all the way around the city. I think that would be like super fun. But, I mean, the world has changed since 2013, but I'd imagine all of these things now, well, they do to me anyway, they feel like they exist in an online space rather than a single player bit of DLC. And I guess what I'm doing is assuming that these DLCs were all single player. I guess they could have expanded them into multiplayer DLCs or online.
Yeah, I think you're right. The world has turned against single player DLC and generally DLC.
But don't do that for 6, please, Rockstar, because I would like some.
We still like it, so please bring it back. And to sort of peel back on, and at that point in time, the Sam Houser leak, as it was called in 2013, I mean, it listed that it said, GTA 5 is full production nearing end.
Correct.
It said, correct. Red Dead Redemption 2, full production starting. And it was codenamed Project Remorse, which I think a lot of people said felt appropriate for what that game actually became. Astonishing revelation. I haven't finished Red Dead 2, so I can't comment on that.
My
I'm
goodness.
sorry.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I haven't. I'm a GTA man at heart, so I haven't finished it. So I couldn't say whether Project Remorse feels true or not.
Well, I can say it does.
Okay. So there we go. And they also said 2013 next GTA pre-production. And then there was the GTA 5 DLC. So it was DLC 1 Alien War, GTA 5 DLC 2 story based. No other details. Could that have been Agent Trevor? GTA 5 DLC 3 Zombie Apocalypse. Then it was GTA Online CNC, which was the original setup of GTA Online, which was scrapped. And then GTA Online Heists, conceived as a separate thing, which is in a way actually what it was. Like they sort of bolted them in.
Yeah.
All of GTA Online felt like they were making it up as they went along. Like it worked, and then it became bigger than they ever knew, and everything ended up, rooting into GTA Online. It also confirmed that in 2011, they said they scrapped the projects Bully 2 and Agent, which we're still waiting for them, and I think we will be. So.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing with this is then knowing what we know now, that most of the research for 6 seems to have been done around 2017, 2018 for like some of the weird and wonderful events that are happening in the world. So if you're starting in 2013 as sort of pre-production, moving into full production, and you're doing GTA Online, and you're doing Red Dead 2, you can see quite easily how you'd go, oh, well, we definitely don't have time to do those DLCs because we're trying to make 2 new games and support an online mode for the next 10 plus years. Just don't think these DLCs are going to, get us the return that they need to. So knowing now that, that's probably where they were at, you can see quite easily, as much as we lamented them on GTA 5 o'clock going, where is the single player DLC? Now you've got a bit of background, you can totally see why they ended up getting scrapped.
Yeah, you can understand the thought process. And something this might spin off into a different conversation is, as part of that Houser leak, there was another blowout around what GTA Next actually meant in terms of bullet points. And that was talk of like it being a full beginning production of 60 people. And they'd listed some locations, and the top of them was Miami.
Tick.
And which turned out to be true. Now, what is also interesting, and whether, again, I'm not 100% sure, it's hard to verify these things, but the premise was apparently a small town GTA tight stories, scheduled characters, ridiculous levels of ambience, every home interior modelled, every building enterable, more realism, and if you've got a wanted level, you're on the run for longer. Now, how much of that will turn out to be true? Let's see.
A lot of that, so like, almost reads like, you know, dreamland concepts. Let's just write it down as if we could do everything. This is what we'd want to do, and then some of this will have to scale back at some point.
And maybe it feels like at one stage the ambition was, like we've talked about, deeper, richest GTA ever versus the biggest GTA ever.
Yeah.
Where they seem to have landed is probably trying to do both, like super, super detailed and super, super big, which is why GTA 6 is taking 10 plus years, right? It's incredible. There was a final throwaway with other locations they researched. One was a 1970s Vegas-style casino.
Still possible.
You know, could be a thing throw in. It's funny. Somewhere snowy. Chicago, Detroit, and then finally Mexico City. Now, if this is true, what is at least encouraging is Rockstar have at least written down that it might be set somewhere other than the 3 cities they return to for all time.
Yeah, well, I guess knowing, you know, what we've just talked about in terms of the DLC, knowing that some of the ideas and concepts that will be kind of, you know, put on the table in the past have turned into real things. So, like, even if they're talking about Agent Trevor, it becomes the Doomsday Heist. So if they're talking about, you know, and thinking about setting something 1970s casino, you know, that maybe becomes a spin-off mission or a flashback. And if they're talking about Mexico City, that could become like a Guarma style, hey, we're just popping over here for a mission and then we're going to come back. And we made all this stuff. We might as well use it. We found a way to work it into the main story, but it's not going to become the whole game. So I think, yeah, like you say, that is exciting to me that there could be some concepts that were being floated around that may now become actual GTA 6 elements.
Yeah, we've talked about this before briefly, but the idea of, you know, what is a company and how do ideas survive in a company? But like, if at some point in time they got excited about a certain set of ideas, whilst those ideas might never have been publicly facing, the way they capture ideas within the company, whether it's shared documents or meetings or it's people, those things live on. So every time there's a new conversation about what do we do, you can bet your bottom dollar someone will go, remember that 1970s heist conversation we had? Wouldn't that be brilliant? How can we make that work? What if you applied it to this map? Love it. Let's do it. So the ideas live on.
I think there's also, you know, lots of, as we know, there's lots of little teams within big development studios like this. And some of them, you know, I imagine would have chosen to go off and just do something like this as a concept. You know, even if it's not approved, they're like, actually, 3 of us were really excited about this. We've gone away and we've modeled this thing. And at some point in another meeting, they go, hey, look, I know this wasn't part of our work. We've been doing this separately, but here's what we've made. Like, what do you think? We think it's super cool. So there's always a chance of that kind of stuff being created just as like a, you know, a micro team and then being put into full production because they went, oh, well, now we've seen it. Yeah, that does work and it's brilliant.
This feels like a natural segue to a creation of your own, James.
So yes, Dan, last week we were talking a little bit about what GTA 6's trailer means, how it relates to the story, how it could tie into one of the missions and things like that. So what that has done is inspired me to go away and think about, well, what could the prologue look like? Which bits of the trailer could we use in that prologue to use to build a story up? So I've made what I think us in the business would call a sort of a soundscape. So if you're listening on Spotify or any of the podcasts, you will get to hear some nice soundscape bits of audio. But if you're watching on our YouTube channel, GTA 6 o'clock, then you might get some visuals to go with it. Ooh. Now, I will say that the images and the representations that I've used are from loads of different sources, and some of them are just like stock things and whatever. Like this is high concept stuff, so you're just going to have to go with it.
So you didn't hire a crew to film bespoke in Miami just for the purposes of this episode?
Not yet.
That is a high ambition.
So what I'm going to do, Dan, is you're going to get a very rough version of this. Didn't have a lot of time. It feels a little bit like I've written some fan fiction. and I nearly didn't do it because I got to halfway through it and went, "Oh, is this rubbish?"
Let the public decide, and me shortly.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you the little video I've made. You are free to either stop it at certain bits and we can discuss things as we go through it, or it's only like, I think, a minute and a half, 2 minutes. We can let it all play out, and then we can talk about your thoughts and feelings afterwards. So let's play the video. We open with shots of Vice City, Leonida. Then we move to a more suburban area. It's a sunny afternoon. The camera angle is from a top-down perspective. We move into the scene until we're outside a convenience store. There's a car in the parking lot. We hear voices.
I'll stop you there because it raises an interesting technical question, because you've lifted what I love, the GTA 5 mechanic. You're going doom, 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 which was actually a secret loading pause, wasn't it, to get you between locations. So I know this is not the intent of this, but do you think those loading pauses will be gone in the new world of GTA 6?
Yes and no. I think they will be gone in this style, in the way that it does it, because, as you say, it was a technical thing.
Yes.
But I think when the characters are near each other, it will be pretty much instantaneous, like with some kind of effect to, audio transition to give you the sense that you have switched characters now, so you know that you've actually pressed the right buttons to make that work. But you look at something like Spider-Man on PS5 and the way that it can seamlessly jump across the entire city, or like instantaneously.
Yeah.
I think depending on how big the map is, the further away the characters get, the longer it might take to do. But I don't think it will be as long as it was on even the GTA 5 version on PS5.
Yes, which was much quicker than the previous ones.
Yeah. But I'd love to think it will be absolutely instantaneous. But I feel like even because that's a stylistic choice that they've done there to make it do that, zoom out to zoom in on the map thing. Like, it's good. I think they'd almost want that kind of mechanic in there, even if it's not hiding a loading screen, just to give you the sense of where you are in the world.
Yeah, I agree, actually. I think as much as it is a choice to hide a technical challenge, stylistically, it serves the function of letting the player know really clearly where they are in the geography of the map. So I would imagine retaining a similar mechanic that goes zoom out, pan, zoom down is great. It's just that they may not be tied to it having to last a certain amount of time anymore, because they could have done it quicker, but they've chosen to do it this way because it's actually a good piece of user design. So I think that's a really good point. So I know that's not the intent of this intro, but I thought I raised an interesting question about GTA.
This is from inside the car, but can't make out what they're saying. Camera moves to inside of the car and the driver says, "Okay, let's go," and gets out of the car. In a first-person view, we approach the door, take out a gun, and kick it open. The pair start to rob the store. After heading to the back and grabbing a stack of cash, they quickly head back outside into the waiting car and speed away. The couple then head to a motel while counting the cash. Once inside, a conversation takes place. We learn the two characters' names are Jason and Lucia, and that Jason isn't sure that this is really the best way to make money. But Lucia, reiterating that she needs the cash to pay for her mother's medical bills, reassures him.
The only way we're going to get through this is by sticking together, being a team. Trust?
Trust.
I like it. This feels like essentially this is adding flesh to the bones of the reverse chronology theory.
Yes.
So you're suggesting that the game would begin, and I assume you're saying you would play as Lucia, or is that not really clear? I guess you would be seeing the other person, you assume, so you would know, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing who we are, in this case, and throughout the podcast calling Jason, you'll see him, and you'll be playing as a woman. So I think, the assumption from people in the know would be, yes, I'm playing as Lucia, and that's what I'm going for here. Yeah,
that makes total sense.
The next morning, Jason leaves to pick up some supplies, but just a few blocks away, he passes some police cars. He calls Lucia to give her a heads up just in case, but she doesn't answer. Cut to inside of the motel room, and as Lucia checks her phone, 2 cop cars pull into the parking lot. Packing as much stuff as she can into a duffel bag, Lucia leaves the room and heads outside. She's spotted by the police, a foot chase in shoes, but she's caught. Cut to Lucia in jail, awaiting a court date.
Lucia, do you know why you're here? Bad luck, I guess.
I'll stop here because what I think if this chronology were to be true, we've got to stress this is, obviously in the realms of
I would stress that it isn't.
evidential style. It's not fan fiction, evidential style fan fiction. But what I would like about this is the central mechanic of trust that we've talked about a lot will be tested from the origin, so that Lucia, having had a conversation with Jason about trust, might think, is he the one who sold me out? Why have the police arrived? So that would be an interesting start to the whole game, where there's this question hanging over their relationship of, did you sell me out originally or not? And he might say, no, I didn't. She might always have a suspicion. So that would be an interesting dynamic. Caveat, were this to be true, etc. But I like that setup.
Well, I will say, before you start again, that originally in this non-fan fiction,
yes,
I had actually written it that as Jason leaves to get some stuff, he calls his contact and tells them where Lucia is. And then he's conveniently not there when she gets arrested. But I thought that was too obvious. And I liked the idea of it being more mysterious, that you don't know if he did it or not. And then she gets arrested.
Like all good directors, that it's implied, not said.
Make up your own story. Ultimately, the case is dropped due to a lack of evidence, and Lucia is let out on parole, but must wear an ankle tag, which limits her movements, but still lets her get a job and take care of her mother. Weeks pass with Lucia working and returning home with food and supplies for her mother.
Now, the theory of her looking after her mother, is this the sort of thing we speculated, that there's a higher motivation for what she's doing, as opposed to us actually thinking it's her mother?
Yes, it's speculation around us thinking there is some other family connection involved with her background, but also based on last week's evidence of what you get ankle tags for. And one of the reasons is you're allowed to get one if you've got someone who's dependent on you.
Yes.
They're more likely to give you one to go out, and then you can, get a job and look after those people while you're still being tracked.
Now, I mean, in theory, could it be like she's got a farm of baby alpacas? I don't think that counts as a significant
Maybe not
reason
alpacas.
in the way that looking after your mother or a loved one might do. Or, and again, another question might be, she has a child.
Yes. And as we've talked about before, that has been almost widely speculated that, maybe she does have a child.
Yes, and this again becomes a different conversation, but that's something to revisit. I think what I do agree with the premise of is that she has a higher motivation, and that does align to this idea of her being allowed out on parole because she has to care for somebody, or there's another reason they've shown compassion. Is it a mother? Is it a child? Is it a pack of baby alpacas? Let's see.
She meets up with Jason a few times, who's working on something big, but has to go to Vice City for a while. Cut to 6 months later. Lucia gets the tag removed, and she's now free again, leaving her to head to Vice City. End of prologue. Discuss.
I like it, and it's not the level of fan fiction one might have feared. Thanks. No, I mean that. It's one more piece of well-engineered fan fiction than I've created, so I'm definitely not knocking it. I think that's very viable. And what I would say is this is an evidence-based, with a frisson of speculation approach. It's a solution to the reverse chronology theory aligned to a game intro. Now, obviously, on previous shows, we've discussed alternative game intros, such as the Back to Vice City, you play the last mission theory, which would also be super cool and might not necessarily conflict with this, because you with GTA 5, you could argue in a way it's got 2 intros. It's got the prologue intro and then the actual current setting intro. So like a double intro is actually still a possibility, which could potentially, this could even be the second intro, so to speak, if you're following the same rules. The thing I really like is I think that idea of tying it back to the evidence we know, this makes a lot of sense. And then beyond that, it's hard to analyse because obviously it's of our creation.
Yes.
Right?
There were some things that I've written in, like, I'm going to call them the director's notes
for
some of these bits.
Once you're Spielberg, you're spoiling us.
That I put in and was going to put into the whole thing, but thought it was better for us to discuss them. So I like the idea of that very first bit when you are sitting in the car. Again, all speculation. This is just based on this video. When you're sitting in the car with Jason and you're having, he's getting out and going like, okay, let's go. I like the idea that the very first thing is in first person mode, and it gives you that, and you can't change it. It gives you the idea of like, oh my God, have they made the entire game like first person? Because they've experimented with it in 5 and it was really well done and it worked. I just like the idea of carrying that through to the first few bits of the game, you having to play them in first person mode, and then giving you the option to go, hey, to change camera angles, just press select and it will zoom out again. And I like that because you can then look around the car and you'd get button prompts to be like, press triangle to open the door. It starts teaching you how to, get in and out of cars in first person mode. You walk up to the door and it's like, press square to kick, and you kick open the door, like that kind of stuff. Because this, as we know, all prologues and openings of GTA games are essentially a tutorial.
Yes, definitely.
So this needs to very quickly teach you the mechanics. So it's doing that, which I think all works. And then I think you get to the bit where you head back outside of the convenience store bit. When you're getting in the car, that is an opportunity to go, hey, to switch characters, just hold left. And then you either get the choice of sitting in the car and just looking around as who we're calling Lucia, or you can, or it forces you to do it and then you're driving the car as Jason. You're learning how to drive the car in the GTA game.
Something I like further about that, though I mean, I'm obviously steering the car off the speculation freeway into really unmoored turf here, is starting the game in first person would be surprising because GTA is not normally in first person. So it instantly says there is a change of perspective. And it means not just perspective as in the way you see the game, but like this is the central question of the game. It's all about perspective. And this if the thematic idea I really like is this idea of a game that examines absolute truth from different viewpoints. One way to do that stylistically is to introduce the game through a certain viewpoint and then play with it. Now, something that would be super fun, and this is really speculating, we've already seen the kind of police body cam clips in the official trailer. Like, what if the first experience you get of the game is first person, later revealed to be Lucia, but then the game at points cuts the, like, almost out of context police first person missions where you're not quite sure who you're playing. Now, then that would be amusing because you'd be going, well, the only person I started the game with first person Lucia. Am I playing as Lucia in these sections? Like, that would be, this is such a leap, right?
Yeah.
But I'm saying that stylistically, you could play with people's expectations by using the perspective as an anchor. And I think that would be really, really interesting. I'm not saying they will. I do think it's obvious the idea of trust is central to GTA. Perspective in a quite literal 3D or first person sense could be part of that. It's the stylistic anchor that plays to the thematic.
I feel like I might have to put you on board of the new mission design thing. We can work together on this, Dan.
Come on,
you
guys.
You can come up with the concepts and I'll make some questionable videos. The only other bit I wanted to talk about was the bit where I was like, you cut to Lucia in jail, who's awaiting a court date, which is the bit where you get, her there going, hey, do you know why you're here? That section, I'd like it to be that you don't just wait, like you play a certain section of the game as Lucia in jail, where you're taught from a tutorial level about a bit more of the gameplay mechanics. So you're taught, hand-to-hand fighting. You're taught a little bit about if there is, workout or stamina mechanics in the game. You're taught a little bit about that by some kind of mini game. Basketball's massive. We've heard the rumors that basketball might be included. It's an easy way to go, hey, you can play basketball now. You're playing it in the yard out while you're in prison. And if they go down the route of weeks days, months, like a calendar system, and there were routines involved, it puts you immediately into that. Well, prison's all about routines, right? So you've got to go here to get your food, and then you've got to sleep, and then it moves the day forward, and then you get some yard time. It just starts to cement those mechanics from the very beginning. As a player, you're like, okay, I get all this now. I'm not saying you do it for a long period of time. Like maybe you just do it for one day, and then it goes, 4 weeks later. But I think there might be an element of jumping through small periods of time where you do a thing and then it's like 4 weeks later you do another thing and it's like 6 months later. So it's not going through years and years worth of change, but it's going through enough change for you to go, all right, time has passed.
Yeah, what I like about that is the idea of you could use prison as a tutorial for the way the game uses, like, I use the word lightly, like real-time time advancement or scheduled events. So you could learn the mechanics of it in one of the most regimented environments there are, but then actually elements of that gameplay move across to the open world. So there's things that you could learn there that be, how you schedule yourself or how you do save, and like all the games, you do that. You sleep and time's magically moved on 12 hours.
Yeah.
You go to this place and time's magically moved on a week. There could be mechanics like that you could put in place that set the rules for the larger world to come. Again, there's a lot of leaps there, but not entirely unfounded, as we've talked about on previous shows.
Well, my final leap for this then, which is when Lucia gets out and is allowed to travel around working, maybe getting a job, maybe getting some money or some supplies for whoever she needs to get those things to, is while you are playing as Lucia in this section, there is like a normal week where you have to obey the law because of your ankle tag. So you have to, you're allowed to drive around, but you're not allowed to go out the certain area, which is what we've talked about, which is, I would say, clearly how that tag is going to work mechanically, at least for some section of the game. But also, when you've got a tag on like that, you're not really allowed to commit any further crimes. So wouldn't it be fun for Rockstar to go, for this tiny section of the game, now you have to drive properly, you have to stop at red lights, you have to do nothing other than go to your job, get to the store, come back home. And maybe you just do it over the period of 2 in-game days, so like twice. But it would be quite a unique thing for them to go, hey, this game that's all about breaking the law and being criminals and that kind of thing, to go, no, actually in this game you're going to have to do something by the books.
It would be a really bold move, and one that you fear that the data analysts at Rockstar would look at and go, oh my god, all the players bailed out at the bit where you've got to collect the groceries for your mom for 2 days. But that shouldn't stop them doing something like that. And if it's done quickly enough and it's more as a gateway to learning other mechanics you might ignore, I think it's a really nice thing to do. And would make a lot of sense because, a lot of people just want to get the game, pull out a gun and start murderizing people. I guess that's what GTA Online will be for them, however they introduce that. But I don't think it would be bad. It would be a good, bold move to force people to explore non-violent mechanics for a little bit.
I feel with the acquisition of like 5M, all of the role-playing stuff that they've got going on, all of that, some of the role-playing servers are all about obeying the law and people playing different roles and that kind of thing, and they're really popular. So I think it could work, but that was my final bit of speculation on top of all the other speculation. But I'm glad you're on board with at least 25% of it.
Oh, if not more.
So I think with that, Dan, we can wrap up this week's episode of GTA 6 o'clock. Thank you for embellishing my fan fiction. Maybe we'll have more of that to come. We've got definitely a couple of emails on that topic as well. So if you've got any thoughts, please email them in, and maybe we can go over some of them next week and discuss them. But until then, I think that's it, Dan, right?
Yeah, and I expect the playable build of the GTA 6 intro on my desk this time next Tuesday.
I'll get on it.
Good luck to anyone out there who can build and make James's intro. I bet someone will. That's a conversation for another day. But I think that's fabulous work, and look forward to seeing you all next week.
Thank you all for listening. Please subscribe to the channel. Get in touch with us on Twitter at GTAVOclock and email us GTAVIOclock@gmail.com. And we will be back next week for another episode of GTA 6 O'Clock.